Different World Pharmacy Volume 5 Chapter 5. A Duke Family's Problems. The medical priest Juliana returned safely to the Holy City, riding a horse prepared by the Imperial City's church. She was currently worried about the next minion being sent to Falma. Immediately after her return, an emergency rally would be held at the Great Church Cardiovascular Center. Juliana was praised for showing up before the senior priests, but her expression was dark and gloomy. "You said you've managed to take on the medicine god and obtain his divine power. A job well done." The senior priests come one after another and congratulated her. "Thank you. You managed to stab the treasured blade into the medicine god. So there wasn't any retaliation from the medicine god." One priest mentioned a very straightforward comment. And no, she was grilled by Falma before she left and not mentioning any detail. If Juliana goes into awkward details, she has to discuss about her attempt in committing suicide due to her betrayal of the church. No retaliation against you. Did you do it during his sleeping time? That is just that. When Juliana is having trouble answering, another priest chimes in with his evil assumption. Oh my, to even take on the medicine god, it must have been quite a colorful scheming. Juliana's cheeks become flushed. That's not it, that's not so. Juliana is saddened by the assumption between Falma and herself. She doesn't mind being despised of, but she can't afford to be despised by Falma. So then, did she find any of the medicine god's weaknesses, secrets of his divine power, and other things when the medicine god took her in? Juliana screams at the heartless question when she's being claimed to be Falma's partner. Falma was kind and act like a human being. Even though I deceived him, he gave me free medicine and encouraging words. She recalls those happy days. I was treated with a generous amount of hospitality at the mansion. It was a brief period, but I was able to learn the tremendous knowledge about pharmacy. The senior priests gazed suspiciously at Juliana as she happily reported. It sounded as if Juliana was humbled by Falma. The guardian deity has no mercy, and it just merely appeared that way for him to spend time in the human world. The guardian deities don't think much of humans as though they're mere insects. Don't be fooled by such appearance. And think about how many times in the past the churches have been deceived and people were slaughtered. Pius reminisces back on the past conflicts between the churches and the guardian deities. The fierce historical battles between the churches and the guardian deities were also recorded in the prohibited books kept by the church. Lower-ranking priests don't have the knowledge of the prohibited contents and containing the detail beside the worshipping of the guardian deities. But the senior priests tend to regard the guardian deities as enemies. Even if there is a guardian deity with us so far, I believe Falma has a heart that I'm sure of. Shut up, you fool! Pius brutally screams at her. But Falma has already saved the lives of so many people. Pius Sama will change his mind if you meet Falma in person. I don't care about that, so return the treasured blade. The priest received the treasured blade from Juliana, placed the cloth wrap item onto the prepared precision disc-shaped meter designed to measure the divinity power. From the moment the priest released it from his hand, the divine power meter instantly loses its power and becomes completely transparent. The meaning of the lack of colors. Was it completely filled? It indicated that the capacity for it to retaining the divine power is already at its limits. You've stolen this much divine power. What happened to the medicine god? He may not be able to retain his human form. The priests clamored in fear that the god might have disappeared. Juliana omitted her explanation of how she robbed his divine power, and she stated that Falma still had some remaining capacity. Quickly calm yourselves down. Other priests are calculating the amount of divine power within it. With this amount of divine power, we can rewind the gear of Haze for 175 years. Foo, ha ha, ah ha 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 ha. The medicine god this time around is a monster, ha ha ha. Pius kept laughing like a maniac. Surely, the gap of his divine power is on a completely different level from those of the other guardian deities so far. Another priest holds onto his head. That is, if we invite him to the great church and fail to seal him and angered him. If he has this much divine power, the previous deity seals will not work on him. This time, for what reason did the guardian deity with such powerful divine power come down for? The priests indicated that it appeared he had absorbed the divine power of several pillars into the future, not just the past few pillars. We have to build a new sealing method. This is urgent. Pius stopped. Juliana still attempts to convey Falma's will. The seal is useless. And as long as we treat him in good faith, Falma told us he would cooperate with the great church. I believe the church is too hostile toward Falma. Is the guardian deity coming the temple? The air of confusion whirls within this meeting place. A senior priest screams out at that moment. Wait a moment, Juliana. You're that the holy crest on your neck which testifies that you are a senior priest, and what meaning of its disappearance? It was discovered that the curse mark on Juliana's nape had disappeared. The senior priests were in a turmoil. If the curse, the holy curse, the curse that the senior priest got engraved onto their body to pledge allegiance to the church had completely disappeared, it was not from the work of a human. The clamor rises in acknowledging that Falma had removed it. Only the medicine god can purify the sacred crest. In hindsight, only the medicine god is good at purification mythology. On the contrary, it was originally made by the medicine god. That isn't so. Falma is not such a person. Juliana desperately rejects such idea. However, the more she explains, the more suspicious the priests become. Stop talking, since you're completely brainwashed. If not, give your loyalty to the church once again. Pious sighs. Juliana once again engraved the holy curse back onto her neck using a trowel. The messenger of the flame god holds a staff and started the chanting to stigmatize the holy curse. The tip of the staff is burning bright red. Kneel down and repent. Juliana kneeled after being kicked with her hair as being grabbed. Quote ellipsis quote. Large teardrops are falling from Juliana's eyes as the twin eyes close tightly to endure the shearing pain. But then, the holy curse. No matter how many times they tried, Juliana's skin isn't damaged. Even after the engravement, the curse did not enter Juliana's body. So you are protected by the medicine god. Pius witnessed the terrifying purification capacity of the medicine god that even erased the holy curse, and while being overwhelmed by what he saw, his mouth smiles with a fearless grin. It seems that the medicine god really liked you. With the worth of her being used, Pius slithers to his aids. In addition to this, go and steal more divine power from the medicine god. From that day onward, Juliana will be under the surveillance of the church 24 hours a day. Falma's intention was transmitted to the great priest. However, his opponent was an enthusiastic person who has no ears to listen and suspicious about the guardian deity as the enemy of humanity. Oi Falma, I'm going to bother you. Around the time the humid season comes around, when the pharmacy staff were dressed in short sleeves, Paul unexpectedly came to the pharmacy on a horse. After explaining the medicine to the patient, Falma closed the store momentarily for a lunch break. Elder brother, what happened to you? You can't be pal. What are you doing here? Your plan for each other. Just settle it all today already since it can't be helped. Ellen stood firmly with the staff in her hand. Perhaps because of what was heard about his brother, the attention of the patients in the store gathered immediately. Lot was surprised to hear that it was Pal and threw away her documents. Lot has a bad impression of Pal since the time she was turned upside down by him to stop her hiccups. Oh my! The shop owner's older brother? Such a handsome young man. The impression is different for the shop owner. Falma ears can hear Pal's reputation. A mellow voice from a young female customer was heard on top of that. Pal seems to be quite popular even in such places. Pal took a breather, drank the pharmacy's water from the water server regardless the comments, and talked to Pharma. He ignored Ellen and other pharmacists. He gazes down at Falma over the counter. You always look busy, Falma. Because it is prosperous. Ellen answers with a pretentious respond. I haven't heard from you in a while. Oh my, do excuse me. I'm sorry about this, but can it be my turn to request for my patient? I'm already at my wit's end. Falma wonders about the rarity for him to be running around for his patient, although he tends to request medicine at times. Letting go of a patient also means losing a decent source of income. Since Pal is a fledgling first-class pharmacist, the number of patients he's in charge of is not as many when he took over from Bruno, and it costs money to procure required medicine, so his thought about this time is about caring for his patient. If you tell me what the illness is, I'll split the required medicine. Since my brother is the chief pharmacist, you should prescribe it. The patient will feel at ease. Falma goes to the dispensing room. Falma relied on Paley's ability to discriminate between diseases, so he thought he wouldn't have to run around for the patient if he could get the drug. No, it's not about the sickness, since I'll do something about if it is. So, what is it then? Pal's incoherent wording has Ellen riled up. It's a family problem. It pertains to a divorce issue and it's quite complicated. Polly said with tiredness and sighed quite a bit. Since that's so, I don't want it to be given to me. I'm still 12 years old, remember. Do you believe I can even deal with such divorce problem, NN? Sensing that there were patients and customers appeared to be moving quickly, Falma turned his gaze at the entrance of the pharmacy and saw a visiting young lady along with her maids. Ah, that young lady, I know her. The Duchess. She's very famous. Ellen stated she had seen her in the salon. Madam, you came. Pal hastily stood up and he reverently thanked her, then escorted her to the counter. A patient sample, and Falma gazed at Pal as he nods at her, glaring. I heard you're heading over here. I don't know what to do anymore, so I've been following you. I understand your feelings. As you can see, my brother is a good court pharmacist and my brother will answer Madam's worries. Pal has becoming more patient for this young lady, and it appeared he has changed his attitude as a pharmacist. What are they talking about? Pal said that he would leave it to Falma in an unspoken gesture, so he had no choice but to accommodate her at the counseling corner. According to Ellen's information, the Duchess is a young mother and had severe anemia shortly after giving birth to her eldest son. Pal indicated he was treating the anemia itself. His worries are not because of her anemia, but her child. A child who doesn't have the father's resemblance was born. Eye color and hair colors are different. Moreover, despite being a child of an aristocrat, he has no divine power. He said that she is unacceptable when it comes to having a child without divine power. Her maid came to Falma and showing him the baby. Surely, the Duchess has blue hair and her husband has red hair, but her child has black hair. Your child is cute, but that may be a problem. Falma has a grimace look. But I think your child's face looks like the Duke. Ellen stated the baby is similar to him, since she also knows of the Duke. I think so too, as the child is from my husband, but he said the child has no divine power, so he wanted me to leave the mansion right away and divorce me. Suspected of her iniquity, she is about to be kicked out of her house with her child. I'm sorry, and it's regrettable. I swear to the guardian deity of the wind that this is my husband's child. Even if he doesn't have the divine power, and even if his hair and eyes are different, there must be something for me to show as proof. I understand. Falma nodded. It's too painful, so he decided to believe in the wife. Although there is a similarity in appearance, however, not all will show up between a parent-child's relationship. If it was decided that the child was unrighteous to be born without divine power, it is highly likely that the child would be abandoned at an orphanage. At any rate, the Duke must recognize his child as his own. Simply perform a paternity test so you can prove who the child's father is. It's subjective and neutral. Please do so. The Duchess took Falma's hands while shedding tears. Falma looks at the baby again. NN? There seems to be a divine vein. When Falma searched for the divine vein like he did before, he discovered it. Although it is weak, surely enough the divine vein is dormant in the baby. Is that true? Pardon me, but I'll take care of your child for a bit. I'll weigh him. After saying that, he picks up the baby and heads over to the treatment room, grabs his staff and inserts the staff near the baby's heart. He applies the God skill, the flow of the sacred spring, without chanting, and opened the baby's divine vein. The divine power overflows from the baby. The pulse is weak. The baby has little divine power being the child of the Duke, but he will still somehow stand out as an aristocrat. Since there should be no pain, the baby is sleeping comfortably. He weighs the baby as he indicated earlier. Ellen, bring me a divine power meter. Understood. He used the divine power meter gauge by slightly touching on the baby after Ellen brought it over. There is divine power, there is, at the church. Whoever it was said that his child has no divine power was the one that could not see it. The Duchess is relieved and manages to smile for the first time after visiting the pharmacy. I used a little bit of mythology to tinker with the divine veins. All of you may have made a mistake. Later on, go to the church and have his attributes assessed. Anyway, the baby is recognized as an aristocrat regardless of whether the divine power is strong or weak, as long as there is a divine power. The baby will be able to regain her noble status, and so the wife rejoices. Well then, all that's left is paternity testing. Please bring the Duke here. Along with a third party as an eyewitness. I wonder if my husband will come. I'm told he didn't want to see my face anymore. The paternity test is invalidated without the presence of the parent, the child, and the witness. In some cases where a paternity test is conducted without the presence of the three parties, and the divorce problem develops based on the results. But Pharma wants to state that it is also possible to forge the result as much as possible by mixing the DNA of such other people. If he doesn't come, he won't be able to trust the results, so please tell him that his decision is invalid. I understand. I'll call on him. The Duchess nodded vehemently and went home. Falma-kun, can you analyze the DNA? You haven't performed it on the patient at the trial experimental platform yet. Ellen worriedly mentioned it to Falma. He has not yet performed a DNA test on the patient before. But the fate of the family now lies in his hands. I have no choice but to research. Not all the answers are in the textbook.